Hello, what's the story? Welcome back to StoryTube. We're back with another review video. How about that? 2 in quick succession. We're talking about Redshirts by John Scalzi. So Redshirts by John Scalzi was on my radar for quite some time, and I just never got around to it. And this year I find that I have been prioritizing many of the books that have just been sitting on the shelf for years and years that I know one day I'll get to and I'll probably like. My brain always gravitates to the really new stuff and like, oh, will I like this? And the exploration and the dabbling here and the dabbling there and the thrill of the unknown. And some of the old reliables that I really know I will enjoy, I kind of push off. And I've been making a point this year to just read them. And I quite like John Scalzi. I find a breath of fresh air in a science fiction genre that is usually quite dour and depressing and full of cautionary tales. John Scalzi is a little bit of light fun and popcorn thrills and humor. Big thing about John Scalzi that I enjoy is he's not afraid to have a little bit of fun, crack a joke, make you smile, make you laugh, but all with an element of heart at the bottom of it. Scalzi says himself that he's a writer of popcorn fiction, and that's absolutely true. You don't have to think too hard with these books. They're pretty easy and breezy, they're light, but I think they're not without just a little bit of depth. I think with Redshirts, he goes for a bit of messing with form and storytelling and just commenting on it in very meta ways. I'll give you a brief description now in a sec of what the book actually is. I find that Old Man's War, I think I liked a little more than Redshirts, just because maybe that's more my vibe, that's more my thing, that sort of military science fiction. I've not yet read The Forever War by Joe Halderman, which is another one of those books that I've been wanting to read for years, for decades at this point, and just haven't. But I'd say Old Man's War, out of the two, not that I need to compare them, but out of these two, I think Old Man's War is still my favourite. But this one is a damn fun book, and it's a damn easy book to read. And sometimes, when you got a lot going on, and life is throwing the kitchen sink at you, you just need a book like this. And a well-written one. And this is a well-written, fun, popcorn book that, by the end, has quite a bit more heart than I think probably John Scalzi himself gives himself credit for. So what is this book? This book is kind of a commentary on Star Trek. You don't really need to be a Trekkie to recognize the commentary or to appreciate it or to enjoy it. But basically, the cannon fodder extras in all of these sort of daytime TV shows of the 60s to basically present day, all of those characters that get sent on the dangerous missions on the spaceship, they land on an alien planet and they send one important character down.
Beam me up, Mr. Spock.
And a bunch of extras, and one of the extras always dies. They're the cannon fodder. They're the meat thrown into the grinder. They're the expendable ones. In Star Trek, kind of among Trekkies, they're called the Redshirts. They wear the red shirts.
Prepare to beam us up.
And in this book, we have a crew on the Universal Capital ship. I can't remember what the thing is, but it's called the Intrepid. And we follow a group of characters, including a brand new Ensign Andrew Dahl with his buddies who are posted on this ship. It's a sort of a great honor, I think. But they quickly learn that all of the new crew and the ensigns, if they get sent on away missions with a certain captain, one of them's probably going to die. And they start to figure this out. So this book is essentially a group of grunt workers running around the ship trying to avoid the captain to not go and do the dirty work on an away mission to whatever planet they're beaming to.
Scotty, beam us up fast.
I think if you wanted to delve a little bit deeper, you could think of it as a cool little metaphor for modern corporate working life. Running around the office pretending to be on breaks, booking meeting rooms just so that, blocking out your calendar so you don't have to do that meeting. All of those little things that I think give this book a little bit more depth than probably was intended, and probably projecting onto it. But it's just funny because it's relatable. And I think that's what Scalzi does quite well. And he did that with Old Man's War, where you had this character thrust into a younger body. And he's figuring out new technology, figuring out how to use a younger body again with an older mentality. And he's in a different place psychologically. He makes it relatable. And he writes kind of these everyman type characters that you just can't help but root for. And Redshirts is no different. This one does, however, get real weird. And I don't want to really spoil too much, but it gets very meta. They realize, okay, whoa, we need to avoid the narrative. Oh no, wait, we're being trapped within the narrative. We can't get sent there because we're going to stop the plot and all this kind of stuff. And even towards the end, it sort of becomes... There's a sort of an epilogue, a series of epilogues that I think add a great deal of heart to the story. And they kind of turn into film scripts or TV scripts at the end, which is very, very fun. And it just makes it quite a unique read. I've never really read anything like it, to be honest. It's quite original. And it's just a nice commentary on pulpy, shitty daytime TV. Not that I'm calling Star Trek or anything like that shitty, pulpy daytime TV, but they kind of reference the fact that this might be one of the bad ones. But there are moments when you start to see some of the strangeness going on, you start to question it, and our main character, like you, it's the sort of the reader insert is the main character, where there's situations that are completely unexplainable, that they're just convenient plot devices that are literal devices. He's asked to solve a problem early on in the book. Come up with an antigen to a disease that somebody got when we were beamed down to this planet.
Scott, prepare to beam us up.
And he explains to the captain, I can't do that. That's going to take weeks, possibly even months, maybe even years or whatever. I need it in 6 hours. I was like, that's no time at all. And then he gives him a box. He presents him with a box and goes, ask this box to do it for you. And this box creates an antidote for him in the allotted time. And he's like, wait, this is impossible. How does this happen? Well, it's just a plot device. That kind of wink at the reader humor. That might rub you up the wrong way. I think some of these things, it's very difficult to tread that line between just taking the piss a little bit, not taking it too seriously, and then being overly slapstick and a gimmick. I think this stays well clear of that line. However, your mileage may vary. If you're just not into that kind of thing, it might rub you up the wrong way. But I would urge you, don't take it so seriously. It's not meant to be the greatest work of art in the world. It's not meant to belittle this kind of storytelling, and it's clearly a satire written with love and devotion. And that heart really comes out at the end of the book. I just grew to really get invested in the plot and the crew, and I wanted things to work out for them, even though the characters in the book are not the best. I don't really remember any of their names even, but as you're reading it, you just get invested in them. And by the end, it's a very heartwarming story about people just coming together and helping each other and doing kind things for each other in a world or worlds that are trying to kill them all the time. And it's a fun little book to read. I still think The Old Man's War is probably his better one, but this is well worth a read, especially if you're a Trekkie. I imagine if you're into Star Trek, you probably already know what this book is. You've probably already read it, but it's well worth a read if you haven't.
Make it so. Make it so. Make it so. Make it so, number one. So. Make it so. Sir? Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it!
And I don't want to spoil anything, but the way Scalzi messes with form and plot structure and just sort of breaking a fourth wall and messing with the structure and nature of storytelling and the relationship between reader, viewer, character, writer, all of those necessary relationships that prop up the conveying of a message, or manipulating emotions, or manipulating a narrative, or taking control of your life and free will and all of this kind of stuff. There's bits of that propping this book up that just make it a little more unique than what could be just a popcorn book. So I think it's well worth a read. If you've read it, jump down into the comments and let me know what you think of it. If you're gonna read it, let me know. If you like this little review, give it a like. If you've just found it, stick around, subscribe, and I'll be back with more reviews very, very soon. And I hope to plow through a couple more over the next week or two. So I'll see you then.